Alright, guys. A little bit of fourth wall breaking before we get into this episode. It's, it's really freaking late for me right now. Like, I'm so exhausted right now. Because I was thinking to myself, like, oh man. Alright, I can do a video right now. I got some time right now. I'm gonna sit down, do a video for you guys, and I'll just edit it later and all that. Like, how crazy could it be? And then I sat down and watched Odd Taxi episode 4 today, or tonight, I should say. And it's probably the deepest, most philosophical episode we've had of the series yet. And I'm just sitting here like, you gotta be shitting me. Because let's talk about it a bit before we get into it. I could see a lot of people thinking that this episode was actually boring, actually. But I completely disagree. Because this episode really focused on the life and the psyche of one man, Hajime Tanaka. And like I said, some people might think it's really boring, but to me, we really see the inner turmoil of this man, his true ups and downs, and we get to see many facets of his psychology and just how he views the world. And I think it's really interesting, actually. That being said, very tired, so my brain is working overdrive. But let's just get into it and start talking about Odd Taxi episode 5. Or episode 4, actually. See, my brain's all over the place. Episode 4 of Odd Taxi today. And yeah, our episode begins with us meeting a character. Again, Hajime Tanaka. And learning a little bit about his life. Now, in present day, he works at a game company, actually. And he doesn't like modern games. He makes a point to saying he doesn't like modern games because modern games reflect reality too much. And games are supposed to be an escape from reality, which is an argument I see a lot of people making actually nowadays. But our story really begins a little before that. But I had to bring that up first. Let's kind of backtrack a bit to when he was a child. Now, Tanaka, when he was in school, as we all know, there's like a school hierarchy. You know, the people that are good at sports or good at arts or that are handsome and pretty and all that and are just genuinely good at something are more towards the top of the totem pole, are more towards the attention spectrum. But guys like Tamaki, who really don't have anything to stand out on, are kind of towards the bottom, you know? They don't really have anything that makes them stand out or makes them feel special. He is like the definition of normal. So when he was younger, he actually liked to collect erasers. And we'll get into that, but he liked to collect erasers, actually. Because that was a fad in middle school for some reason. A little weird, but hey. And there was one person in his school that he always fought with to who could collect the best erasers. Now, this one kid, he had parents that traveled a lot, so he could always get them to bring back super expensive erasers for him, like super rare, unique erasers that he could just never compete with on like a regular student's allowance. So he would always get jealous, and in his own words, he would taste defeat every single day from this guy. And that was until one day he saw online a super rare, one-of-a-kind eraser. And guys, let me say right now, I laughed my ass off when I saw that one eraser. And it was in this moment that I realized just how right I was about what I've been saying in the previous episodes, how every little thing is going to come full circle. I can't believe that eraser is coming full circle like this, but it is. That's the eraser we saw previously in our episode 1 review, actually. I'm pretty sure. So I'm sure we'll definitely get into that later, but you know, he saw this eraser online, and it was on a bidding site. You know, he said, oh, 3,000 yen, that shouldn't be too much. So he snuck into his parents' room, took his dad's credit card, and went to go purchase this eraser. You know, he said, oh, I got 3 days until the auction's over. It's only 3,000 yen. What could happen? You know, I'll place a bid real quick. I got limited time. I don't have much time before my family finds out what I'm doing, so let me place a bid on this eraser right now. And see what happens. And then, long story short, as the days kept going on and on, closer to the end of the auction, the price kept going up. Now, Tanaka, who does not want to be left behind, who wants to prove himself, who has such a pessimistic view of the world, thinks that if he can get this eraser, it's going to suddenly change the world for him. His whole perspective, his whole horizon is going to be different. He's fooled himself into believing that. So every single time this other person raises the price of the eraser more and more, this man would constantly raise it 100 yen more. Until it became the final day of the auction, and he saw that the price jumped up substantially to 5,000 yen. So, and he heard his parents were coming home at that moment. So in a panic, he put 10,000 yen. And I was thinking to myself watching that, oh, wow, that's a crazy amount of money, but he should definitely win. But no, he adds another zero after that, and he spends 100,000 yen, which is a ridiculous amount of money for an eraser. And he actually ends up winning the auction. Who could thunk it, right? But as he was waiting for the eraser to arrive, you know, a day, a week, a month passed, a couple months passed, and the eraser never came. And in that moment, he realized there's plenty of ways he could have went about this. But the auctioneer said no refunds or anything like that. So he never inquired about that. So he just silently took the loss. And seeing as how his friends weren't even interested in erasers anymore, he decided, you know what, it's whatever, who cares? We'll just let it go. He was in such depression until his dad finds out and beats the living shit out of him, as you would expect with him spending that much money. And it's in that moment that his mentality changed. He asks himself multiple times, like, whose fault is this? Society, the world, my parents, my brothers, my fault, my friend's fault? And he just completely loses it at that point. And now we flash forward to in the future, where he's found a new obsession, actually, in the form of a gacha game. Now, I don't know if any of you guys really know gacha games like that, but they are extremely addictive games that are literally made to take your money. They give you lots of free options at first when you're first playing them. Like, oh yeah, you see all this free stuff you could get, just keep playing the game. But as you progress, you know, they start adding a little more and more. And to do things, you need to spend money. Now, ever since he was a kid, Tanaka has had an obsession with birds. One particular bird, actually. It was the dodo. It was the reason he started to collect erasers to begin with, because he had a rare dodo bird. And since childhood, he's been obsessed with this bird. And the game he's actually playing is a farming game. And he sees that a dodo is an animal you can acquire. But because it's extinct, it's actually a super rare animal. So that'd be like an SSR, I guess you could say, from a gacha game. Very hard to get. So, and he's playing the game for free for a while, as he's working at his company job. And then he realizes one day, oh, I'll just put a little bit of money into it. It's no big deal. And that's how his downward spiral really begins. Because first it's a little bit of money, and then it's a lot of money. And then at some point he himself realized that, oh, I went down the rabbit hole. Like, at some point I lost all control after that, and I was spending hundreds of thousands on a whim like it was nothing. Becoming completely obsessed with it. And it's in this moment we realize that it's not even just his obsession with these games. It's just his mentality as a whole to constantly try to make himself feel like he's important with these inconsequential things, with these random bullshit. We really start to understand the state of his mind, that he's deluded himself so much, that he's so warped at this point, that he just doesn't understand what he's really doing. But he does understand, and that's what makes it worse. And by that point, he's already far too gone, you know? He's obsessed with it. It's taken over his whole life. All he can think about is getting this dodo in the game. So one day as he's walking home from work, actually, he ends up getting this dodo. And he starts crying on the spot, actually. Like, he can't believe it. He even says it himself, my 4 years of my life. And he says, no, my 16 years of life have finally been rewarded. And he starts crying on the spot. And that's when a taxi driver comes through and makes him drop his phone in the gutter. And if you guys remember from our previous episode, the taxi driver is Otokawa, racing off to go see Shirakawa from the previous episode after meeting Dobu. And he just completely goes into despair in that moment. He goes and gets another phone the next day, but all his dodo's gone. And he goes into complete and utter despair. And I forgot to mention this earlier, actually, but he had a pet bird his whole life. Because like I said, he was obsessed with bird. He had a pet bird. And that day, his bird just happened to die, too. So he is quite literally on rock's bottom. And he goes and buries his bird in the park, actually. And that's when he ends up digging a hole and finding something quite interesting. Because I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode, actually, but Dobu, after leaving Otokawa's taxi, actually goes and buries that gun of his to hide the evidence, I would imagine. So if cops catch him, he wouldn't have a gun on him. He actually buries that gun. And who should happen to find that gun while he's burying his bird? Tanaka. So now we have a very mentally unstable person walking around town with a gun and a grudge against Otokawa. And who should happen to just drive by in that moment but Otokawa? And he's found a new obsession in that moment, killing Otokawa. And our episode really ends with him eerily smiling after catching sight of him, chasing after him and not getting him. Like, he's found a new obsession in his life. And it was actually very unnerving to watch. And that's how our episode ends. And guys, don't crucifix me in the comments. Like I said, I'm so exhausted. I did not think we would get our most deep, thought-provoking episode right now when I was doing this. The second it started and I realized we were doing a whole character's backstory in one episode, I was like, oh my lord. We're going to do a deep introspective dive into this character's psyche. And I was sitting here like, oh my lord, I'm too tired for this. But Tanaka is a very, very interesting character. And with his new obsession being Otokawa, and with him having a gun now, he's a very dangerous person too. So I'm extremely curious to know how he ties in. Because at this point, every single thing in this series ties in. I don't think there's a single thing that hasn't been brought back up or referenced again or become a plot point itself from earlier. The only thing I can think of is Bruce Springsteen being mentioned in episode 1, but I'm sure that's going to get brought up too at this point. So you guys let me know what you think about this show, guys. This episode in particular as well. This series just continues to impress me the longer I watch it. When I tell you guys, when I saw that eraser, I started to laugh because it finally hit me at that point that, oh shit, everything is going to come together. Every single thing is there for a meaning. And I think that's really awesome in a series. But like I said, you guys let me know what you thought of it down below. And yeah, I think that'll be it for this episode today, guys. Like I said, if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to know, because I think this was a crazy good episode. And if I didn't do something justice, please let me know. By all means, let me know. Don't be an ass about it, but let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to know. But that'll be it for this episode, guys. I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until next time, deuces, have a blessed evening, night, wherever you are. And I'll see you next time. I'm going to sleep.